I'm Rajiv Bhatia, Director of Alternergy. Alternergy is a wholesaler and distributor of solar PV and battery storage systems. We are one of the most established distributors in the sector and have been in operation since 2006.
Hello, I'm Michael Rae. I'm the Channel Director for Huawei FusionSolar in the UK. That means I'm responsible for our distribution business, which covers residential PV and storage and also commercial as well. Delighted to be here with Alternergy today. Thanks for inviting us to participate in this video.
Right. Michael, so how do you think you see the UK industry evolve over the next few years?
I think it's an exciting time for the PV industry. Some research that we saw from IRENA suggests that PV is going to grow substantially over the coming years. Eventually, renewables will be 86% contribution of overall power by about 2050, and probably a quarter of that will come from solar PV. So there's obviously huge room for growth. In the UK, I think there's some excitement and optimism around what the new government is saying. So I think it's a very exciting time for the industry, and we're certainly seeing a lot of new projects, new opportunities coming to fruition. So yeah, it's a good place to be right now, and I think there's every reason to be optimistic for the future.
And do you see any impact on the industry in terms of the way pricing is working across storage and panel side of the industry, even inverters, and the proliferation of manufacturers and what's happening over there?
Definitely. I think there's been a lot of volatility in the market, particularly over the last sort of 12 to 18 months. So hopefully things will stabilise as we move into next year. You know, we try as best as possible to maintain, stable pricing across all of our PV and storage products. But obviously, there has been some volatility in the market.
I mean, I'd heard from an article in the Financial Times that there's an expectation of a lot of consolidation taking place over the next 12 months. Are you starting to see that happen, or is it still early days?
I think there's a lot of consolidation going on right across the industry, whether that's manufacturer level, whether that's installer, EPC level. I think the most important thing for us as Huawei in the market is to maintain stability in our business, to keep investing in our business, to continue to grow the team in the UK. What we hear from our installers and our customers is that the most important thing is that we have a big local team in the UK to be on hand, as and when problems and opportunities and requirements and technical issues come up. So it will be interesting to see how things pan out over the last 12 months. We were recently at Solar and Storage Live, and we saw a huge number of new manufacturers in the industry. And I think for everyone, it's going to be important that they maintain investment in the UK, that they commit to research and development, that they commit to having a big local team here, and that they commit to having support on hand. So I think all of those things are important in order to maintain your business.
I believe that's critically important. It's very much a decision maker for many of the bigger companies.
Yeah, and obviously R&D and innovation is at the heart of that. So Huawei, we pride ourselves on research and development investment. So 10% of our revenues every year at least go back into research and development to ensure that our products are ahead of the game and keeping up with the latest trends and standards in the industry. And over half of our workforce of 6,000 people in Huawei Digital Power are committed to R&D as well. So it's those types of things, investing in the team, that I think keeps you at the top of the industry and helps you to make sure that you can satisfy customer requirements.
I agree with that. The next question is looking at the safety of products and the impact it has within the industry. What are your views on this, and what is Huawei doing in particular to address safety issues?
Yeah, it's a huge topic and a very important one, if not the most important, when it relates to safety of PV and storage. Huawei, as you've seen, has invested massively in certification and testing facilities and processes, both from a PV and a storage perspective. So our products go through a huge amount of testing and certification before they're launched across a whole range of different topics, such as operating environments, being dropped to make sure that impact doesn't affect the performance of the products or minimises the impact of the performance of the products. Exposure to dust, exposure to water, exposure to heat, exposure to extreme cold, all of these things, part of our testing process. when it comes to PV and, electromagnetic interference and noise and, a whole host of other things as well are part of that process. And that's for the inverters. And then for storage, again, we go through a really, really strict process of testing the battery cells that we source from third-party suppliers. So over a process of about 10 months, we conduct over 100 tests on those battery cells to make sure that the potential of fire taking hold or thermal runaway taking hold in lithium iron phosphate batteries is minimized. So we go through a whole range of tests, such as, again, dropping the battery from certain heights to prevent leakage or explosion, or to make sure leakage or explosion doesn't happen, puncture tests to make sure that thermal runaway doesn't take place, short circuit testing, overcurrent, overvoltage. There's a whole huge range of tests that we conduct to make sure that the cells are performing to our standards, not just taking the cell manufacturer's word for that, going above and beyond from that point of view. And when it comes to battery safety, the cell management is the most important thing, because, as you know, with a battery cell, if the temperature goes out of control, then thermal runaway can take hold, that can spread to other battery cells, and that can lead to a fire or an explosion. So real-time monitoring of battery cells is of paramount importance, and not just real-time monitoring, but also being able to predict if battery temperature is going out of control and being able to alert to that scenario beforehand. So safety is huge, and we are constantly adding new functions and features to our inverters, to our storage platforms to improve that right across the board.
And I understand, of course, that Huawei now have a really good commercial optimized solution, and that, I'm sure, also looks into safety. Have anything to add on that?
Yeah, definitely. We see MLPE, or as optimizers, being one form of MLPE, being an increasing trend in the future. We're seeing more and more projects specify optimizers. We've had optimizers on our residential and commercial products for some time, for a number of years. But we've improved those products to support dual panel. We've re-architectured the manufacturing process of the optimizers to reduce the number of points of failure, to improve the failure rates, and also to do things like monitor thermal detection as well. So with all of those things combined, we believe we have a very robust, resilient, reliable, and safe to use PV system for residential and commercial platforms.
And do you think immersing products in water actually provides any information about the safety of the products?
For sure, yeah. I mean, as part of our testing process, we expose the inverters and the batteries to water. I think with our new S1 battery, it's exposed, or actually submerged, in up to 40 centimetres of water for a number of hours to ensure that there's no negative impact to the battery. So, in the case of, wet climates, or in the case of flooding, which unfortunately we're seeing more of these days, I think it's important to conduct those tests. It's important to conduct all of the tests that we do, and I think that will only get more stringent as time goes on.
The next thing I wanted to ask is, what are the critical factors that keep brands competitive and allow them to thrive in the future?
Sure. Well, for Huawei, R&D and innovation is at the heart of that. So, we're committed to combining power electronics and digital technology, which will become an increasing part of PV and storage systems. Already is, but it will only become more important in the future. So, our commitment is to keep innovating, to keep investing in innovation, whether that's through investing more than 10% of our revenues annually, to keep our workforce at 60% committed to, or actually dedicated to working in R&D. So research and development and innovation is most certainly at the heart of that, and that combination of combining power electronics with digital technology, which is really at the heart of what Huawei does. I think stable supply chain, as we've seen over the past few years, is a hugely critical factor to ensure that projects can go ahead on time and on budget. So having that stable supply chain is for sure a critical thing. I think open ecosystem is very important, particularly as we now see more development of software platforms, cloud partners emerging in the market, whether that's virtual power plant operators, whether that's utilities companies looking to take control of battery storage assets, things like grid balancing, and for customers to take control of intelligent tariffs or take advantage of intelligent tariffs. So having a platform that's open and capable of integrating with third parties is really important. not just from a software and cloud perspective, but also from a hardware perspective as well, because we're definitely seeing, the separate industries, traditionally separate sort of heat and electricity industries coming together. So, our strategy is to have an open platform that can manage not just solar and storage, but also EV chargers and heat pumps that aren't manufactured by Huawei, to have that open platform so that customers can sort of strive towards having smart home where they can really start to take control and automate the control of solar, storage, heat, EV charging, and even extend to lighting and the rest of their home as well.
So artificial intelligence starts to have a big impact on the future?
For sure, yeah. I mean, we already build AI into our products. It plays a very important role in the safety side of our products. So we use AI algorithms to manage the arc fault circuit interrupter, which is actually quite a challenging thing to do, to detect accurately when an arc fault occurs. You have to do massive data processing at local level in order to determine, what is an arc fault and what isn't an arc fault. And we've successfully proved with AI that Huawei can do that. It's been independently verified by TÜV, and we've shown that we can shut down the inverter in half a second, which is 1.5 seconds less than the industry standard, in order to prove that functionality works. And so that's just one example of where AI is incorporated into our products. I think, in addition to, what we've mentioned about brands, needing to have to stay competitive, and certainly what Huawei wants to do is also, in addition to that open ecosystem, have investment in the local team. So it's hugely important for us, for you, for our customers to have a local presence, whether that's from a sales and marketing perspective, whether that's from a pre-sales technical perspective, and also whether that's critically from an after-sales perspective as well. So we want to make sure that we have enough resource. We've got plenty of resource to support our customers when they need us, if they need technical issues or assistance with installation. So we want to make sure that we've got the right people on the ground to support them locally. And I think, that is one of the many things that will set successful companies apart from, ones that perhaps don't, make it, particularly in the UK market.
Yeah. So financial stability and scale is critically important.
Absolutely, yeah. Huawei's, the leading manufacturer of inverters in the world. It's a privately held organization. The group turnover is now in excess of $100 billion US. It's recognized as a bankable brand. And, we've had that consistency and stability from a financial perspective all the way through our history, and that will continue.
Thank you. Right. So also wanted to ask you, what are Huawei's strategic goals for 2025 and beyond? And how does that align with industry trends?
Yeah, so we look closely at what's happening in the UK market. We talked earlier about, the government seems to be committed, thankfully, to the target of 70 gigawatts of solar by 2030. So, we intend to be committed to, being a big part of that energy transition to green energy, and to helping the UK achieve its carbon zero goals. Sort of looking further down into market segments, I think now we're at the stage where about 1.5 million homes are covered by solar in the UK. So there's a long way to go in terms of residential coverage, in terms of the retrofit market. So, we're looking closely at, the size of the market and how to align our business accordingly. We're also interested to see the consultation on the Future Home Standard as well, which will impact, hopefully positively, the number of new build homes that have solar PV, and also the amount of new build homes that have solar PV. There's some very interesting initiatives, particularly around new builds, such as the Octopus Zero Bills initiatives, where, Huawei is one of the approved vendors for that as well. And then I think also there's a huge opportunity for growth in the commercial sector. I think, Solar Energy UK have been working with people like the Warehouse Association, and have identified that probably 90% of commercial properties don't have solar in the UK, and that there's somewhere in the region of 15 gigawatts of potential roof coverage for commercial property in the UK. So there's a huge amount of potential. Obviously, that will be influenced by policy, subsidy, different ways that people can finance projects, whether that's CapEx or in commercial with things like PPA. So we look at the market, we try to align our business and align our business investment accordingly. And as I say, we're committed to helping the UK on its journey to net zero.
Thank you. Labour have said, yes, we're committed to 70 gigawatts by 2035, but in addition, we're actually committing to 50 gigawatts by 2030.
Right, okay.
So they're actually accelerating it. So on that basis, potentially, we could be achieving around 100 gigawatts by 2035. So way beyond what had been agreed. Yeah. So that was the original agreement of 70 gigawatts by 2035. Okay. So, that means the potential for this industry is that can grow by between 5 and 8 times from its current level in the next 10 years. Yeah, you've seen that sort of spreadsheet which I've done looking at, what the industry could potentially do. Haven't you? Remember that?
I have, but I don't remember it well enough.
Yeah. So between 10 to 14 gigawatts is the potential for this industry should the government achieve its target. Yeah, that's what it's saying. So the government achieves its targets, and we are talking about between 10 and 12 gigawatts a year installed.
Yeah.
From a level of about 1.75 today. So we definitely have that, and the commercial, but that's obviously takes into account commercial, industrial, as well as utility scale.
Yeah.
So it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing I'd like to ask is, what do you think are the opportunities for growth, both in the UK market as well as globally?
Yeah. So again, as we said earlier, there's a huge amount of optimism in terms of what the new government is saying about the potential growth of the solar contribution to the energy mix in the UK. Potentially that could mean 10 to 12 gigawatts of solar being added every year. And I think, an increasing amount of that mix of solar will come from residential and commercial deployment. And that's why we believe that, the product reliability, the product quality and the product safety is of paramount importance, because when you're installing more in residential and commercial environments, that's more tricky than a solar farm in the middle of the country. There's more people located nearby, there's more property, there's more assets located nearby, so safety becomes an even more critical thing. And having that ability to monitor real time the PV and the storage system, to generate alerts, in the event of anything happening or before something happens, and making sure that you have the safety functionality built in right across your product range, whether that's rapid shutdown on the roof through optimization to DC arc fault detection as well, isn't it? Because it's an important element of how the inverter reacts to it. Yeah, so the research we've done shows that 70% of issues occur on the DC sides of the PV circuit. So we've built in functionality to ensure that any overcurrent, any short circuits, any issues with the DC side, quickly disconnected within 15 milliseconds. We've started to now mount the MC4s onto the circuit board of the inverter itself with temperature detection, so we can analyse and monitor temperature detection and isolate that before it becomes a big problem. Obviously, AFCI is built into the inverters, industry-leading levels of rapid shutdown of the inverter at half a second as well, and then the cell level monitoring of the batteries to prevent and to alert in overcurrent, over temperature, and making sure that cell temperatures don't run out of control. So safety, I think, because commercial and industrial in particular will be more of that solar mix, safety, becomes an even more important factor. So definitely we see growth in storage as well. Certainly over the last couple of years, we've seen a huge uptake in the amount of residential storage that is now deployed with residential solar. People now see the economic benefit of having batteries stored in their home. More and more people are obviously adopting EVs, and people want to take the opportunity to charge EVs overnight at cheap rates. More and more home users are becoming more educated about the potential of being able to save money, but also take control of how they use energy in the home and how they can even generate, more income as well as save money on their electricity bills as well. To a lesser degree, but certainly I think a huge potential for growth is commercial storage, which is, a relatively new market, I would say, in the UK, but certainly globally, we see at Huawei that the increase of solar and storage is definitely the growing trend, because just like homeowners, businesses want to be able to not just move to self-consumption, but also reduce their bills, take control of their energy costs, and also take advantage of things like arbitrage and peak shaving and balancing grids and those types of initiatives as well. So there's a huge amount of growth, I believe, in commercial storage too.
I understand also from some of the data we've seen that the UK's energy consumption is going to double in the coming years and decades, and that they are looking at storage as being an important factor in energy management. So is that something that Huawei is looking at?
Absolutely. Whether that's utility, commercial or residential scale, we're committed to, developing our battery storage portfolio. We've got some leading products already available in the markets. And for sure, that is, part of our big growth plan, both in the UK and also globally. And battery storage will become increasingly important across the globe, but also in the UK. And the UK is recognised as one of the biggest markets, I think, for the adoption of battery storage globally, and certainly across Europe. And there's a number of reasons for that, because, having that battery storage means that, because traditionally, renewable energy that's generated from wind and generated from PV is not necessarily stable and, can be intermittent, is obviously weather dependent as well. But what battery storage gives you is that stability, that resiliency, and the ability then for the grid to be more stable as a result of that. So battery storage is going to be hugely important for sure.
And that will help in load balancing as well.
A number of areas, yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, sort of arbitrage, frequency response, peak shaving, but ultimately, leading to a more stable grid, and one that can be reliably provided with renewable energy, and an increasing amount of renewable energy can form that electricity mix.
So finally, I'd like to ask you how important it is to collaborate with distributors like Alternergy in your overall plans.
Yeah, it's massively important because, the market, particularly for residential and commercial, is very distributed. In the UK, there are somewhere in the region of 2,500 installers. It's impossible for a manufacturer to address that market on its own. So, working with Alternergy gives us the ability to scale our business and to ensure that installers get, the support they need when they need it. And that comes in a number of different ways. Obviously, as an important part of your business is, making it easy for installers to design, source, specify and get hold of the goods, when they need to get hold of them. So having that stable supply and, fast delivery, to the installers is massively important. Installers, operate on a basis of time is money. So, if they're not installing on people's rooftops or on commercial buildings, then that's dead time and dead money to them. So they need to make sure that, they get the right goods and the right products on time when they need them, so they can go and do what they need to do and do it in as fast a time as possible. And, the other thing for us is, market awareness and visibility. So working with Alternergy gives us the ability to have much wider brand exposure within the installer community as well. So that's very important. Training is a huge challenge, but something that we feel is of paramount importance. We obviously want to grow our business in the UK, but in such a way that we ensure that, growth grows in line with quality, and making sure that the installers that are installing our equipment are doing so, with a level of knowledge, obviously professionalism and certification, but that those installers are going out and, knowing how to do it. And obviously Alternergy are helping us deliver training programs, across the country for that as well. So that's also hugely important. Yeah, and I think, the day-to-day relationships with the installer community is definitely what's been handled by Alternergy and your team. So that's hugely important.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Alternergy and Huawei have been working together very successfully for the past 5 years. So we've built a strong relationship we have an open communication, meet on a regular basis. Our teams work very collaboratively together, so it's a very successful partnership, and we look forward to building on that in line with the growth of the solar and storage market in the UK.
I mean, certainly from our side, we look at Huawei as one of our business partners rather than just a supplier, and we'd like to work together with you and your team. Do you feel that's also really beneficial for Huawei? It is for us.
Oh, for sure. It's not a customer-supplier relationship. It has to go beyond that. As I mentioned, it's about having deep collaboration, being transparent, being honest, and dealing with the difficult issues when they arise. And I think the thing that builds relationships, and certainly in our case as well, is that things don't always go well.
Yeah.
And that's just that's just life. That's what happens. And I think it's about how you react, when things go wrong. And we support you and you support us, and that's what builds the long-term partnership.
I think it's the trust that we've built up over the years, which we find incredibly important.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of the other factors that we have built into our system is we created a PV design tool called ACE PV. We have incorporated Huawei's product range into it, including all the battery storage side and optimizers, etc. So it's an integral part of our design tool. What are your views on how that works for Huawei in particular?
Yeah, well, the beneficiaries of that are obviously the installers predominantly. I think, and again, one of the values of working with a distributor like Alternergy is that you want to make the customer journey for the installer as easy, fast and seamless as possible. So, you've invested a lot in e-commerce and obviously the design tools as well to do that. And I think that's necessary, for sure. Definitely as the business and the market grows, installers will be dealing with more projects. There'll be more installers in the market potentially as well. So making it as easy as possible for them, to design the system, move through the process to, seeing the pricing, checking the stock, and then placing an order, and then finally getting delivery is massively important, I think. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much.